JJ Lopez, The Early Years, Part 2, by David Smith. Quoting from Saga of Rancho El Tejon by Frank F. Latta. I expect that I am the last remaining alumnus of the old Spanish Escuela Normal de Los Angeles. I attended there in 1863 when I was 11 years of age and was one of the youngest students in the school. I was in the school until 1865. The school closed just after I left. The principal of the old school was Senor Juan Manuel Silvas of Concepcion, Chile. The second in rank was Candido Frijo of Spain, and the third was Francisco Escanillo from Andalusia, Spain. Understand, theirs was not a church school, it was a tuition school. They taught us French, Spanish, English, Italian, mathematics, and bookkeeping. Our parents paid $300 a year for our board, lodging, and instruction. School was held where the southeast corner of Main and Castelar Streets are now, 3 or 4 blocks east of the old church on the plaza. We lived there day and night under very strict supervision, actually amounting to military rule. Our teachers were as strict as they could be. A big wall surrounded the place. They drilled us and kept us under their eyes at all times. Our building was on what then was San Fernando Street in the old home of Don Fernando Yorba. He was owner of Rancho Santa Ana. We, the school, occupied the Los Angeles mansion while he was living at Santa Ana. It was a very large one-story L-shaped adobe with a big patio and courtyard. About 20 of us roomed and boarded at the school. Perhaps 150 others stayed at their homes in Los Angeles and attended during school hours. I had a small room alone at one end of the house in the southwest corner next to the dining room and kitchen. There were 9 classes or grades in the school. The 9th grade was called the superior class. In it we studied the 4 languages, mathematics, and bookkeeping. The lower classes studied just English, Spanish, and mathematics. It was because my health was not good that my father took me out of the Escuela Normal and put me in the country to live in a tent. Old Dr. John Griffin ordered this. I was subject to bronchitis, and it was thought that I would develop tuberculosis. So I went home and lived in a tent for a while, and then into the store of John Lazarovich in Los Angeles. I worked there for a year. Mrs. Lazarovich was my first cousin, a daughter of Chico Lopez. The store was at the corner of Requena and Main, just opposite the old U.S. Hotel. Then Dr. Griffin once again went to my father and told him, "Already I have saved that boy once for you, and now you are going to lose him after all unless you take him out of that store. He will not live to be 25 years of age unless he stays in the open. He has weak lungs. Put him out with sheep in the sunshine and fresh air." So my father put me out, and you see I have been out ever since. My father took me out of the store and put me to sleep in a tent in a sheep pasture. I stayed there doing nothing and finally became interested in the sheep business. That spring, 1870, I started out with a small band of sheep and had quite a good start at the business when I came to Kern County in 1873. The San Joaquin Valley attracted me for 2 reasons. There was free feed and open range here, and the climate was suitable to my weak lungs. The climate always has agreed with me. I soon became strong and have lived to be 86 years of age after an extremely active life. From the time I went to work in the Los Angeles store of John Lazarovich in 1867, I have kept a diary. It began as a journal such I had learned to keep in the old Escuela Normal and then was keeping in the store for Lazarovich. I kept a record of all my income and what I spent for clothing. Soon I began noting down in it anything that seemed to me to be of importance, and in that way I turned it into a diary. This diary was written every day. I almost never missed a day. Only when I was sick, and then I made a few notes and recorded the happenings in full when I was well. It covered all of the time when I was in the store, the time I spent alone in the tent, in the sheep pasture near my father's station near San Fernando, and my first experience in handling a band of sheep. That was in the San Fernando Valley, southwest of Lopez Station. This diary was written in notebooks that just would fit in my coat pocket. I carried one with me at all times and often wrote in it while herding sheep and when in the field handling cattle. Each year I filled 4 or 5 of these notebooks. They covered my daily and almost hourly experiences in driving the 16,000 sheep from Rancho La Libre to Green River, Wyoming. In my office at El Tejon Rancho headquarters, I had all of my diaries and my correspondence, both what I had received from others and copies of the letters I had written to others. I probably had 100 letters I had received from General Beale, also many from my relations and from prominent California pioneers. There were a number of letters from Mary Austin and several from Helen Hunt Jackson, both of whom interviewed me before they wrote their books. General Beale had told me dozens of interesting stories of his experiences in the California War and of his Western travels, and I had written them down in his own words. Often I drove him about the ranch, and he related these stories while we were in the buggy or buckboard. During the day I made notes. During the evening I would write them out in full. The general enjoyed seeing me do this, and often he would repeat parts of them when I was recording them. The greatest property loss of my life came when these records and keepsakes were consumed by fire. The ranch owners were making some additions to the buildings, and that portion of the structure was burned, including everything I have mentioned. By the time I was 8 or 9 years of age, I had learned to rope and ride young bulls and steers. I began several years before, riding small calves, and kept at it, tackling larger stock until I could ride an almost full-grown animal. When I was about 11 years of age, I had a small white pony, an old Mochia saddle, and an old broken riata. End of Part 2.